Well, this is it. The last video for the Sonic month. I can't believe it's been 35 years since Sonic the Hedgehog made his debut, reaching so many different kinds of people. I've mentioned in the previous video how I got into the series, but today, let's look at his 20th anniversary title, along with a 3DS port, and the re-release with a new Shadow Story expansion. First off, let's start off with the original. I remember being excited for the Sonic generation when it was first announced, celebrated 2 decades worth, and seeing the reveal of Sonic from his Mega Drive titles, and the combination between the classic style gameplay and the modern boost gameplay. I downloaded the demo on my PlayStation 3, which only featured the classic Green Hill stage, but I played it non-stop when I wasn't busy with real life. Eventually it came out in November 2011, and I loved it to death. Today I'll be looking at the remastered version of the game on my PlayStation 5 for easy access to record, as recording games on the PlayStation 3 is an absolute nightmare. Plus, it's the best way to play the game with its higher frame rate and resolution. Sonic Generations is a celebration of the franchise up to that point, and it shows both in levels and in the plot. It's Sonic's birthday with his friends giving him a surprise party. However, the mysterious Time Meter crashes the party, sucking up everyone into a void, leaving Sonic, and Sonic, to save them and get back to their homes. The script was changed in the re-release as it was originally written by Ken Poncat and Warren Graff, who originally translated the script into English for the Wii game Mad World and Sonic Colors. I didn't realize this until I was researching, but for you old heads who grew up in the 90s, Poncat also created the TVK Mason show Bump in the Night. Jesus, that's a name I haven't heard in ages. Anyway, back to Sonic. The script for the re-release was handled by IDW Sonic writer Ian Flynn, who I think did a good job referencing past titles, as well as giving modern Sonic extra lines when saving his friends. But I thought it was unnecessary to change the script in the first place, as the original was perfectly fine the way it was. The dialogue changes also doesn't match up with certain voices, like the final confrontation between the Sonics and Eggmans. The plot is bare bones, but honestly, it's perfectly fine for a game like this. The franchise does have character-driven moments, seen in the likes of the adventure titles, Unleashed, or any other supplementary material, but it is secondary at best. The series' main appeal to me has always been the gameplay and levels. As the name implies, it features 2 styles of gameplays, catering from the classic and boost generations of games, going through 9 zones, each with 2 acts, one act containing the classic style and the other act containing the boost style. Classic Sonic is supposed to mimic the Mega Drive generation of games with the inclusion of the speed up and invincibility monitors, but isn't one-to-one, with the default spin being useless to get any momentum. Thankfully, the spin charge is incredibly fun to use, able to pass through plenty of obstacles, and I think Classic controls well enough. He even has the drop dash for Mania in the re-release, where I used it pretty often to build up momentum. The levels are a good mixer of platforming and speed, with various pathways and goodies to explore that are fun to revisit. Boost Sonic is a total blast to play. Unleashed was a great direction for the series to grow, as the physics of the levels in this game are immaculate. Modern Sonic feels so comfortable to control, improving on the drift controls from Unleashed, and replaying these stages are an absolute delight, being incredibly large with many routes to explore, while offering some fun platforming challenges that require quick reactions to get the best times. In the re-release, you can change the control layout, mimicking the style of Frontiers, with the right trigger to boost, or go back to its original control scheme using the square button to boost. I originally had it on the right trigger, but I felt more comfortable with the original control scheme. The developers took into account which were the most popular levels throughout each game, taking opinions from State of America, Europe, as well as from fans. The game is split up into each console generation of Sonic, starting with the early days to the most recent of the game at the time, Colors, although sadly CD was excluded from the list. The Mega Drive era games include Green Hill Zone, once an iconic stage that got reused throughout the years since, Chemical Plant Zone from Sonic 2, and Star Sanctuary from Sonic & Knuckles. Some great choices, especially Star Sanctuary, which is an important story piece in that game. And then you have the Dreamcast or 6th generation of levels, which feature Speed Highway from Sonic Adventure, City Estate from Adventure 2, and Seaside Hill from Heroes. Finally, you get to the latter titles at the time, which includes Crisis City from... oh god. Then Rooftop Run from Unused, and finally Planet Wisp from Colors. I think their choices were excellent. Now my only nitpick is that I would have preferred a level like Mr. Manson to represent Heroes instead of Seaside Hill, as Seaside has similar aesthetics to Green Hill. Seaside Hill does thankfully have themes that make it stand out. You had the heavy use of water segments in Act 1, and the go-karts in Act 2. Even the city courses have themes that set them apart, from City Escape's iconic skateboarding section, and the creative use of the dump truck, and Speed Highway's use of rockets. I'm surprised they even added a level from 06, despite the heavy negative feedback, and the level is actually amazing. They made me fall in love with Crisis City of all things. I absolutely love the Fake Doll and Fire Tornado section in Act 1, and the final moments of Act 2 made me feel how 06 should have played from the start. They even added elements from other levels, like adding the floating platforms from Marble Garden Zone and added them into Sky Sensory. The only course I didn't particularly like was Planet Wisp in Colors. It's a dead pit from that game in concept, but damn, I hated controlling those spike wisps and trying to activate the switches in that zone. Act 2 is slightly better with the Rocket Wisp, but I thought the course overstayed its welcome a bit. It was interesting to see zones like Green Hill and Chemical Plant being converted with the boost style gameplay, as well as seeing stages like City Escape and Rooftop Run converted onto a 2D plane, and the execution is sublime. My favourite castle levels are Chemical Plant, City Escape and Crisis City, and my favourite modern levels are Sky Sensory, Speed Highway and Seaside Hill. The remixes for these tracks are excellent, with each Sonic getting their own rendition of the songs. My favourites have to be Sky Sensory Act 2 and both Speed Highway and City Escape remixes. You can also unlock a selection of music from past titles, which can be played in any level afterwards. Sadly, the re-release removes all Sonic Rust music due to some copyright reason. The same happened when they removed Right There Right On in Smash Ultimate. Extra music can be unlocked by collecting red rings throughout the levels, as well as doing their extra missions. The missions range from raising a ghost, collecting a number of rings, to Deck to the Doll with an Aqua Shield. The missions are fine for the most part, but I wish they were completely optional, as some of them are needed to access the bosses and beat the game. Thankfully, these missions only last a couple of minutes, and you only need to beat one mission per zone to progress. It's not as bad as collecting the Sun and Moon medals in Sonic Unleashed. The main campaign will only last you a couple of hours to beat, which is a good enough runtime. Chaos Emeralds exist and are required to beat the final boss, but you get them from beating the bosses in this game. There are 4 main bosses and 3 rival bosses, with the exception of the final boss are all derived from past titles. The rival bosses consist of Metal Sonic, Shadow and Silver, and the main bosses are the Death Head Robot from Sonic 2, Perfect Chaos from Adventure, and Edradoon from Unleashed. These aren't just one-to-one recreations of the bosses from past titles, but retools them to fit in this game, and the execution for the most part is great. The fight against Silver is a step up from 06, being actually enjoyable, and the Perfect Chaos fight is my absolute favourite fight in the series. Instead of going supersonic and being a straight up boss fight, it feels more so like an obstacle course trying to get to the big drip. I kinda wish more Sonic bosses would work in the same fashion as this one. Sadly, Generations takes quite the nosedive at the very end against the Time Meter, which is one of the worst I've experienced in the franchise. In the fight, you are playing as both classic and modern in the super forms, flying through different planes to reach the Time Meter, and it feels so slow. What's worse is that your friends won't shut the hell up, as every few seconds someone will yell out something that's already obvious. If I was playing a drinking game of every time someone says, "What's up on that human salt?" or "That's a human salt," I will be lying on the floor passed out. Sonic Generations is a fantastic game on consoles that is still a blast ever since it came out. But it did have a 3DS port that was released at the same time. The 3DS port was handled by Dimps, who were former SNK developers that first started out with the series with Sonic Pocket Adventure on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, and since then they were the guys who worked on the handheld Sonic titles. They were also the ones involved with the PlayStation 2 and Wii port of Sonic Unleashed. Dimps were the ones that made Sonic Rust, the precursor to the Boost style games, so they seemed like the perfect fit for the 3DS port. Well, let's see how well they did. The story is pretty much the same as the original title, except for a few changes. For one, the plot starts before Sonic's friends arrive at the party, with only Sonic and Tails being present. The script is taken straight from the original game, and in execution, it's bad. Generations isn't a plot-driven game, but some of the cutscenes that reveal the time meter or Eggman being taken away uses All Impact when all you see are character portraits, white dissolve transitions, and the odd sound clip. The 3DS was powerful enough to have fully voiced animated cutscenes, so it just feels cheap. Heck, plenty of DS games even have CG cutscenes, including Sonic Colors on DS, which just heavily compressed them. The same method could have easily been applied here, though some things at the bosses would have made sense as the bosses are completely different. Still, as I said, the story isn't the main reason why I play Sonic games. Besides the plot, the game is different from its console counterpart, featuring a different set of zones, which I can appreciate offering something different than trying to cram a 7th generation console game onto a handheld. Being on a handheld, I would have assumed it would have focused on Sonic's handheld history from the Game Gear to DS, and according to Takeshi Iizuka in an E3 Q&A, he mentioned that it would have featured levels from the GBA and DS era games. This was an absolute lie. There are no levels represented from the advanced games. At least the Game Gear was sucked down from the start. It would have been so cool if we got levels like Zundel Zone from Sonic 1 Game Gear or Music Plant from Sonic Advance 2. But alas, it was not meant to be. So what did we get instead? Well, first off, instead of 9 zones, we get 7 zones with no courses from Heroes, 06 or Unleashed represented. And instead, we have a course from Sonic Rush added into the mix. To be honest, I was disappointed in this lineup of zones, mostly taken from the first levels of each game. Green Hill Zone makes an appearance again, which sucks. They could have put any other zones in that game, like Marble or Starlight Zone. Generation just ignores the Sonic 3 part of the Sonic 3 saga and adds in Mushroom Hill of all zones. Like, I would have felt levels like Hydra City or Ice Tap would have been more appealing. At least Casino Night Zone is a good pick, always the other casino theme level. You would have also think they would have added another Sonic stage to represent Adventure 2, like Metal Harbor or Pyramid Cave. But no, they decided to put Rattle the Highway, a Shadow stage instead, and the remixes for Rattle the Highway are garbage. What's even more disappointing is that all 3 Mega Drive At 1 levels are straight up copy and pasted from the original games. At least it was nice to have a Sonic Rush stage with Water Palace, but nothing from Rush Adventure? Come on guys! Classic Sonic gets a Hermit Cat as soon as he reaches Emerald Coast, and it doesn't seem right to me. He does get a Hermit Cat in the console versions, but that is an optional unlockable you can equip, while here the levels are designed with the Hermit Cat in mind, and it mostly comes down to Hermit Cat scenes. The Act 2 stages don't have it any better, as it feels like some zones feel their end before they start becoming interesting. I think my favourite course is probably Tropical Resort from Colors, with Classic getting the burst whiffs that was exclusive to the DS version, and the modern getting the Laser Wisp. The bosses are at least pretty decent. The 3 rivals are bad, but they act more like races, similar to the Metal Sonic race in CD. The main bosses consist of Big Arm from Sonic 3, which is a cool pick, Bio-Lizard from Adventure 2, and Ed Emperor from Heroes. Bio-Lizard is again a sadder fight, but I can let it slide since Sonic does eventually fight him immediately afterwards. It's surprised they chose a Heroes fight instead of one from Rush or Colors, but it's an okay fight. The final boss is also much better thanks to the actor characters screaming in your ear, and doesn't feel as slow. Progressing is simpler as side missions are entirely optional, being separate in the game menu. Chaos Emeralds are now tied to the special stages, which pay homage to the special stages from Heroes, and to enter them you just have to progress through the campaign. Sonic Generations on 3DS isn't awful, but it's not something I will hop on again. If you have a 3DS lying around and got 2 hours to kill, then maybe give it a shot. While Sonic got his celebratory game back in 2011, Sega had something planned for one of his many rivals. 2024 was the year of Shadow, and to get people hyped for Shadow's appearance on the silver screen, Sega decided to do a bunch of promotional material for the character, such as adding multiple Shadow skins to the mobile games, created a Shadow-themed motorcycle for the Motor Red Bull Grand Prix, as well as a Sonic Twitter takeovers. I absolutely like these Sonic takeovers, by the way, giving these characters so much personality outside of their games, and it's such a fun way to interact with the community. The social media team is probably one of the best out there, showing how much they love the series. But of course, the most important thing is that Sega decided to re-release Generations that includes a brand new campaign starring the Ultimate Lifeform. The hype was pretty cool, as the new campaign was going to play similar to the boost games with more levels, and the pro yard animation sort they did for the game was awesome. Seeing Shadow and Emerald fight on the art was so cool. I did play this around the time it came out, borrowing my younger brother's copy on the Switch, but I decided to buy a copy for myself on the PlayStation 5 recently. Shadow Generations is set parallel to Sonic's story from the original game, as when he embarks on the art, he gets warped to white space and finds out that Black Doom has come back, who wishes to control the Ultimate Lifeform and release evil upon the world. He meets a bunch of characters along the way, with the most important being Maria and Devil Robotnik from the past. I don't really care for Shadow besides in his first appearance, and I don't think this game drastically changed my opinion on him, but I will say 2024 was a year that made me at least appreciate him with the movie and in this game. Seeing Maria and Gerald in the flesh interacting with the current Shadow was certainly heartwarming, and seeing how much Shadow has grown since his debut, being a lot more mature, not letting his anger consume him, was a good amount of character development. I like how he was struggling trying to warn both Maria and Gerald about the invasion aboard the Ark, and seeing him tear up at the very end was kinda sweet to end the Shadow Maria arc. I do wish we saw Maria and Gerald a lot sooner, like after the first level, instead of halfway through, as I think it would have impacted Shadow's struggles of letting the two people he cares about the most go more. You do get a bit more detail into their characters through their hub world, as well as the diary entries you can pick up. It was cool seeing the love and care they put into the world of the series, acknowledging things like the connection to Angel Island and the Ark, the Robotnik family tree, to Gerald's discovery of Emerald. I do wish that in the future we can go past the origin story of Shadow and see him grow as a character with new stories to tell. We see Shadow go through some levels, mostly from his past, starting with the Space Colony Ark from Adventure 2 and Kingdom Valley from 06. But we also see levels from games after Generations like Sunset Heights from Sonic Forces and Chaos Island from Frontiers. Compared to Sonic, he doesn't have much of a history of levels to pull from, so I can see why they added Sunset Heights into the mix. He did have his own campaign in Forces, a very short campaign mind you, but was still playable. Chaos Island from Sonic Frontiers is such an odd choice, and Shadow has never set foot there. My guess they went to at least add one more level and had the assets from Frontiers to make a level out of. Funny how we have a level from a game Shadow hasn't appeared in, but not a single level where he was the actual star. Shadow the Hedgehog is a terrible game, but they could have added one of those stages and molded it into something fun. I mean, they did that with the two 06 stages. Heck, Black Doom is the main antagonist in this story, but instead of teleporting Shadow into one of the stages, where both characters share a personal history with one another, he decides to teleport him to Radical Highway of all stages. Still, I guess Radical Highway is more suited for Shadow than Sonic, being the very first stage you play as him ever. At the very least, it wasn't just ignored, as you can unlock music from that game, plus the DLC level, Tokyo, has a remix track of Westopolis, the first level from Shadow the Hedgehog. The DLC level is a recreation of the Tokyo scene from the Sonic 3 movie, and has Shadow bear the movie stand with a new voice. No, I don't think that's Keanu Reeves. The level is fun, but not much for the asking price, as it only lasts a few minutes with a couple of extra missions. The rest of the levels are a blast to play, recreating these old levels and molding them to fit this new boost gameplay designed for Shadow in mind. This is probably the most comfortable I had controlling a Sonic character. I never once felt that I died due to physics. Since there isn't a small tubbier version of Shadow, he gets 2 acts all to himself, and these are pretty fun with multiple branching paths. While playing similar to Sonic, he has his own set of moves to call his own, such as Chaos Control, which allows you to slow down time and follow new paths when you see these green tethers once the green meter below builds up. Throughout the campaign, Shadow gains new moves dubbed the Doom Powers. He unlocks the Chaos Blast, which are secret missiles that are used to activate switches and paralyzes enemies. The Doom Surf allows Shadow to go across water, and the Doom Morph turns Shadow into a blob and allows him to travel through purple muck and swing around like Spider-Man. The Doom Morph is a bit awkward to control at first, but it became a lot of fun to play with. These abilities are obtained just before you need them in a level and are implemented quite naturally, and are mostly used after their time has sun. Kingdom Valley is designed with the Doom Surf in mind, with these cool surfboarding sections, and Chaos Island is basically the Doom Morph stage. The only one I wasn't bid on was the Doom Wings, which allows Shadow to fly in exchange for rings. You've seen them demonstrated in the first level, and I assume for the first time playing this game I thought I unlocked them immediately, but when I tried to do it again I couldn't until the very last stage, Radical Highway. This is the direction I would like to see when designing multiple characters in a 3D Sonic game, having their own moves but still obtaining the feel of fast-paced levels. The bosses are all from his past, from Biolizard from Adventure 2, Metal Overlord from Heroes, Mephius from 06, and finally Black Doom, and man, this might be the best sets of bosses in the series. No misses whatsoever. Again, they picked these old bosses and retooled them for this game in particular. Fighting Metal Sonic on a surfboard throwing giant objects was incredibly fun. They have that hype sonar flair like Frontiers, but actually being engaged into play. These aren't going to blow your mind, but these are incredibly fun for Sonic boss standards, and the music certainly helps. Like Sonic Generations, I do wish the pacing could have been better, as before you can progress and fight the bosses, you have to do the extra missions found in the hub world. The extra missions aren't yarn, but I'm not big on exploring a giant hub world to open boss states and other knickknacks in order to progress. The screws you find in the hub world for Orbot and Hubert is apparently a waste of time, as it only leads you to an achievement, so I didn't bother looking for them all. Shadow Generations is a direction I would love to see the series go forward in the future, and if you already played Sonic Generations, back on the 7th generation of consoles, and haven't picked this one up yet, then I highly recommend you do so, as the Shadow experience is as good, if not better. I would love to see the Sonic franchise go in this direction, with highly detailed original levels, fun as hell boss fights, and being comfortable to play. Who knows what's next for the Blue Blur and his friends, but I will keep my eye on them. Before I end the video, I would love to know what are some of your favourite zones in each version of Generations. I've already mentioned my favourites in the console and 3DS generation, but I would have to say my favourite in Shadow is either the Space Tunnel Arc or Sunset Heights. I was certainly impressed how they turned a pretty low level from Forces and turned it into something amazing, with the Death Head robots being stage hazards and using the Doom Surf in the sewer sections. The visual difference between them is night and day. I hope you enjoy me celebrating 35 years of Sonic the Hedgehog,